I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Monday, February 13th, 2023 meeting. Excuse me, could I? Folks, settle down. Thanks. Of the Planning, Resource and Development Committee. Looks like everyone in the committee is present, so we have a quorum. We rule the minutes from January 23rd. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Gary and seconded by Diane. Any questions or revisions? All in favor, say aye. Both say no. Motion's carried. Minutes are approved. Do we have any public comments? General public comments? Okay. Well, this is okay. General. Okay.
Well, I want to talk about the
Come on.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the PR&D committee. My name is Chase Potter. I'm the chairman of the town of Sherman, N7706 500 Street, Menominee, Wisconsin. I'd like to offer additional public comment in regard to potential changes to the home occupation provisions of the zoning ordinance. Last month, I discussed the importance of home occupations in the town of Sherman. I'm really pleased that the committee and the zoning staff are looking at making some changes to that. I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit more this morning and also to address one change proposed by the zoning staff. As part of the process of developing the town of Sherman's comp plan, Wisconsin statutes 66-10012F requires that the town shall assess categories or particular types of new businesses and industries that are desired by the local government unit, and shall assess the local government's unit strengths and weaknesses with respect to attracting and retaining businesses and industries, and shall designate an adequate number of sites for such businesses and industries. In drafting our comprehensive plan, the Plan Commission has had extensive conversations around each of these required sections. General agriculture, conservation, and residential zoning comprise 99.91% of land in Sherman, limiting most types of commercial development to the land which is not zoned commercial. So the vast majority of the town's potential for new businesses and new business development using existing zoning is in the home occupations. And the town's residents overwhelmingly support that development. In our survey, 64% of residents responded that the town of Sherman should support home-based businesses as a form of economic development. Sherman has several home occupations that I'm aware of, and I'm sure many more I'm not aware of, but to cite two examples of shops I've been in, the square footage far exceeds the 750 square foot minimum requirement or maximum requirement, excuse me. I took a look at the GIS, and these businesses are using 1,300 square feet and 3,100 square feet respectively. Now, I've been in both of these shops, and there's barely walking room around the equipment used to run these trades. There's a suggestion in your packet this morning that the home occupation square footage limit be changed to equal 50% of the dwelling space. This is actually the specific reason that I decided to come in for comment this morning. At first glance, a 50% restriction might make sense. It's how St. Croix County does it after all. Over the weekend, I had a chance to familiarize myself with the St. Croix County zoning ordinance, and I noticed a critical difference, which is that St. Croix County restricts minor home occupations under the 50% rule to the primary residence. In Dunn County, the zoning ordinance allows home occupations to use accessory buildings, and I do believe it's critical that this distinction remain. Regarding the 50% rule, the median square footage for homes sold in Wisconsin is about 1,600 square feet, resulting in a medium home occupation maximum of 800 square feet under a proposed 50% rule. So for many folks, this change really wouldn't be a change at all, 750 to 800 as a median. While at the same time, it could create additional administrative burden on the zoning department to determine allowable home occupation square footage on a case-by-case basis. But the thing that I find most concerning is that a 50% rule has the potential and perhaps the propensity for inequitable outcomes. Where a family who have saved for years to buy their first home, perhaps 900 or 1,000 square feet, and would want to start a home business in their garage or shed, would be arbitrarily limited based on the size of the home they could afford. While a neighbor with a 3,000, 4,000, or 5,000 square foot home could run a home business using 3 to 5 times as much space. This kind of arbitrary zoning rule would harken back to the exclusionary zoning ordinances and laws of the 20th century, which disproportionately impacted people of lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and particularly people of color. This is why I was concerned when I saw the proposal for the 50% rule. But I'm glad we could have this conversation today because I believe there's an important point buried here. In 2022, 10% of homes sold in Dunn County were over 3,000 square feet. 5% of homes were over 3,500 square feet, and 1% of homes sold were over 5,000 square feet, for an average selling price of $593,000. Under the proposed 50% rule, approximately 1% of homeowners would have the ability to run a home occupation in 2,500 square feet of shop space. And if we're willing to give that to the 1%, and we can see that there's no risk to the community in that type of use, given the other limitations of home occupations of limited to 2 employees, nothing visible from the exterior, noise, dust, smoke, can't extend beyond the property line, and no signage. If we agree that that's acceptable, then I believe we should give that opportunity to all homeowners who are zoned for home occupations and allow up to 2,500 square feet for shop space, given the other restrictions. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. Any other public comments for the meeting? Yeah. Go ahead. Go on up.
It would be about the R3 zoning.
Name and address, I guess, first.
On right now.
Yep. Is the light on? There you go.
Bob Cook, Chairman, Town of Red Cedar, address E6477, 490th Avenue, Menominee. And my question was brought on by the article in the Colfax Messenger, which would allow changes to the 2017, made changes in 2017 to the zoning, allowing multifamily owner occupied dwellings. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if a property was zoned commercial and a house was there for the owner to start with, which is the way they would tend to start out in the business. If the owner decides to put on more employees and the only way to get them there would be to add residential dwellings, isn't that bypassing the zoning code? I have not, as you can tell, I have not thought this out completely yet,
Right.
but I'm concerned that if a resident that owned the business decided, I don't want to live this close to my business anymore, I'm going to put my employees in there, how many could he put in there? And it comes to mind because we've got a property on 708th that is going to have an ag business there, a tomato growing facility. And he said he wanted to build a house there. Okay, and if he can't find enough employees to work and he brings people in to take care of the business, are we going to have an influx of houses on that property? Because it looks to me like it would be allowed. And what would we be creating? And I'm sorry, I can't explain this any better right now, but I think you get the general idea that are we circumventing the housing by allowing this? I'm sorry, I can't explain it any better, but I tried to talk to Mike about it. And I think we're on the same page, but
Let me ask if the committee has any questions or thoughts about. Ann, do you have any insights?
I guess I'd love to talk to you about it, but just being put on the spot, I'm not entirely sure.
we haven't had time. And
Yeah.
I just read the article and Mike was the first one I called. And I think about the farms in the area that have brought in, in this case, I think mostly Mexican workers. And I know that a lot of their secondary and third farms have houses on them and they just keep bringing them in, and that's fine. They're providing a needed service. But what's going to happen when this type of hiring moves into other businesses? I know that there's a group working over at Master Packaging, and they're basically brought in to work on the farm. Some of them that are working on farm have spouses that work over at Master Packaging. Now, what if we start doing that with other types of businesses, like this tomato growing outfit decides that I'm going to put in a couple of trailer houses here for my employees as a better draw to make them come to work there, because they'll have housing and a job all right on the site. Has anyone thought about that? If you have any more questions, otherwise I'm going to sit down.
President Kinnear.
Bob, so far you've mentioned just commercial properties that already have a business on it. And I know we had discussed just a blank, empty commercial property. Would it concern you if that empty commercial property had multifamily housing built on it?
That's right, Mike. You and I did discuss that, a property that we have in Cedar Falls that possibly would have been a gas station at one time and never happened. And it's zoned commercial. Could that be turned into duplexes? Could it be multifamily put there now? It's not. It has been deemed not suitable for this gas station purpose, but if you're sitting on that property and wondering what you can do with it, is this a way to circumvent the regulations?
Those are good points, and those are some of the reasons why we are considering removing that from commercial, so you wouldn't have that problem.
The town of Red Cedar has no R3 residential. All we have is R2 and commercial. And it's worked well for us so far, but thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Excellent. Anyone else? Okay. Our next item is the public hearing on the United Way's petition for zoning map amendment from general ag to general commercial. I'll open the hearing, and it's a public hearing. This will be I note that all members of the committee are present. This will be the only opportunity to speak to this topic. We'll start by having the county manager or our staff provide a overview of their report. We'll have any questions from the committee, open it up for public comment. We will have the public comment be sworn testimony, so we'll ask to swear you in. And then at the conclusion of the discussion, we will close the hearing and have the vote on the request probably at that time. Anything? So let's start with staff report on the United Way request.
Just to be clear, we did do the staff report the last time. Are you wanting me to do that again?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're reopening the hearing, aren't we? Yeah.
I mean, I certainly can do a.
Why don't you do an
summary.
overview? Do an overview of it so we're all familiar with it.
I wasn't really prepared to do that, so.
That's okay. Just.
All right. So, The request here is to rezone approximately 4 acres from general agriculture to general commercial. The intent here was that the United Way was leasing the main building located on the property and would like to rezone in order to purchase and conduct commercial business uses. Proposed uses were a meeting facility, banquet, event center, and C3 donation center, business office, and tavern that will serve both food and liquor for the purpose of fundraising. These uses are only allowed within the general commercial district. Kind of some background on this, the subject property is zoned as general agriculture at the moment. It was previously restricted commercial. This was changed to general ag as part of the comprehensive rezone that occurred in 2014. The past and current use has been commercial. That main building was constructed for commercial business purposes. It contains a kitchen, a bar, and a dining area, and some business offices. There's a ball field and parking lot that surround the main structure. As a reminder, rezonings go with the land, not the property owner or use. Once it's zoned to this particular classification, the zoning is permanent unless changed by a subsequent rezoning action or ordinance. I included some uses that are permitted within general ag and general commercial within the staff report. Regarding compatibility and consistency, staff found that although this property has been operating under commercial use for many years, the specific use of the property has been altered. Some uses have been discontinued. Just kind of going through here. I think at the time we ended up postponing the hearing because the town had not had a chance to address this. I believe that they have recommended approval. The development trends in this area, adjacent land is zoned as general ag. Land across the highway from the subject property is within the city of Menominee and zoned as agriculture and industrial. Development trends in this area are leaning toward industrial, but also remaining agricultural. Based on the analysis, staff recommends approval of the rezoning amendment of the subject parcel from general agriculture to general commercial. At the time, we recommended that it be contingent upon a subsequent recommendation of approval from the town of Menominee. It appears that we have that now. And that ends the staff report. If you have any questions.
Any questions of Ann?
The town of Menominee Plan Commission approved it, but the town board doesn't meet till tomorrow, I think. So it was just the plan commission, but they did approve it.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Any other comments? Does the applicant wish to speak again to the topic, or have you? Very good presentation. You want to talk, Earl? Name and address, Earl, and I'll swear you in. There you go.
Earl Wildenberg. I reside here in Menominee. My mailing address is box 409. And then we also have a business in off Highway 25, which is, I've got a 60,000 foot manufacturing business.
Earl, could you raise your hand? And
Oh, I gotta do that.
you gotta do that.
Sorry
Sorry,
about
we have to do that. You swear your testimony to be the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Anyhow, when this was rezoned, I didn't own the property back in 2014. I didn't own it until 2017, and I was went through. I'm just reiterating what we did last time. I was on the board town board for 14 years. And I wasn't even aware that that was for sale until 2017 when I bought it. And I didn't know that it had switched over to ag until United Way wanted to change it, and then that's when I first found out about it. So I would sure like to see it stay that way, because United Way now has their funding in coming together. And we're going to be meeting Thursday or Friday of this week to get that solidified if this all gets looking good. I guess that's kind of where it's at.
Okay. Any questions of Earl for you? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Uh, any discussion by the committee? Is there anyone care to make a motion to approve or deny? Advisor,
And I will second it.
right? Oh, right, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I take that back. You can wait. You can wait. I have to close the hearing and then we'll move on it then. Is there any other comments or questions about the request?
Mr. Chairman, I probably should have asked Mr. Wildenberg, but when we considered this last, the United Way essentially said, no, we don't have finance, we don't want to move forward with this. Do we have any confirmation that they do wish to move forward? And as Mr. Wildenberg indicated, that they have their financing in place?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're gonna be meeting on Friday, and United Way approved so far the terms for using off the credit. But regardless of. the-
Yeah, you need to come
I
up.
guess Rich, I should have you come up and do the,
Can't
go
hear
through
you.
go through the process. Name, address, and then we'll swear you in.
Rich Ellefson, E5180 650th Avenue, Menominee.
You swear your testimony to tell you the truth and only the truth.
I do. Okay. We have a tentative agreement with United Way. We're going to be meeting on Friday to renew the offer to purchase that had expired last week. Okay. So the terms have been outlined. They're all ready to be signed. United Way needs to run it past their board yet, but we've talked to the executive director and the board chairman, Tim Bartles. That. Any questions? And regardless, if United Way didn't decide to buy it, we would still need the zoning request changed. Otherwise, the property has minimal value for an agricultural purpose.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ellison.
Do we have
Yeah.
discussion now during the thing or?
Well, if
later?
there's anything about the testimony or the presentation that you have a question about,
No.
we'll have additional time opportunity for questions. Okay, then I think that's all the testimony. Anyone else want to testify? And questions, so we'll close the public hearing. And then to facilitate the process without objection, could we move item 9A, which is the discussion and approval or denial of the petition up to the current position in the agenda? So without objection, we'll do that. So now we're discussing item 9A, our decision on the zoning amendment request. Any further discussion by the board? Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support it now that the town has weighed in, but as we consider it, think about the future. Some of the testimony is interesting, but really shouldn't determine whether we rezone or not. If a person, I know Earl, and I like Earl, but if a person buys a piece of property and if they're gonna lose money selling it, that isn't our concern. I mean, I feel bad about the person. Whether the United Way can buy it or not, I don't think that affects the zoning. There's certain criteria we have for zoning and, you know, we'd like to say, oh yeah, let's help out the United Way, but that's not really one of our criteria. So whether someone knew something was zoned one way or not, well, that's due diligence, you know, less than 5 minutes, you can go check on the GIS. That's what a bank would do. So I go through this and in the future, I want to make sure that at least I think we should be making decisions based on the criteria that come with changing the zoning. So like I said, I'm all for it, but just the reasons. Yeah, it was at the plan commission meeting for the town of Menominee. I was there and it was recognized by all but one that it was a mistake. That it should have been commercial and when we changed it, it just got put as general ag. So that was the general consensus of the plan commission.
Anyone else? Okay, I share that view that it seems like an appropriate use for the property to be commercial. Regardless of the ownership. Anyone care to make a motion one way or the other?
I'll make a motion that we approve that rezone, even though the Menominee Town Board has not met. It's been going on way too long.
Right. And they have as I understand it,
You know,
the
they
town
can
board
still
has the
veto.
ability to overrule us if they wish.
Mhm.
Is there a
Yeah.
second?
I will second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, we've approved the rezone request. And then one other thing on the agenda, item 8A and B, I see the applicant is here. So if it would be okay with the committee, could we move those requests up in the agenda to allow them to get on with their work for the day? So without objection, then we'll move to 8A, Mr. Carlson.
Good morning. Thank you, Tom. So this information is in your packet. We have a variance request today. The petitioner's Timber Ridge Development. Tim and his wife Andrea are in the back of the room here, representing Timber Ridge. They are actually requesting two separate variances this morning, but they're somewhat related. First variance would be to create a lot which does not meet the requirement of 30,000 square feet of contiguous buildable area. And the second variance would be to waive the 75-foot building setback. I'm gonna go down a few pages here. Okay, so a little background. The applicant currently owns lots 13 and 14 of the plat of Timber Valley located in the town of Red Cedar. I think the committee, most of the committee members were here when that plat got approved back in July of 2019. So that plat, of course, predates the adoption date of our current land division ordinance. The lots are currently zoned residential 2R2. The applicant is currently constructing a spec home on lot 14. Doesn't show up in any photos, right? Because the photo is from 2020 and the house is fairly new, but there is a home being built on lot 14. And the applicant has a potential buyer for lot 13, which is a lot next door and adjacent with the retention pond on. This prospective buyer would like to purchase lot 13 in order to construct a garage. Therein lies the problem. The Dunn County zoning ordinance prohibits an accessory structure on a new lot unless the principal structure has already been permitted. There are no plans to put a house on 13, just wants some extra land. So the two lots need to be combined. That would allow the new buyer to construct a garage on land that's currently platted as lot 13. So all of lot 13 and a significant portion of lot 14 are impacted by wetlands. I'm gonna go down to another slide here. So this is from our GIS. I apologize, I can't put the lot numbers on here, but this is lot 14 down here that has actually the retention pond. I'm sorry, that's lot 13. So lot 13 has the retention pond. And lot 14 is the one right to the north of it. So you can see the green areas here are mapped wetlands. And then the areas in the polka dot outline, if you will, those are the areas with hydric soils. And then if we buffer that by 75 feet, that's this dashed purple line here. So you can see all of lot 13 has no room for any type of buildings. And lot 14 would have just this little area here. But by the time we factor in zoning setbacks, the highway setback line, side yard, it only leaves about 1,900 square feet in there. So as they stand, they're existing non-conforming lots, a house, outbuildings, sewer well could be placed on either one of the lots. But that's not the plan. So anyway, it's important to note that both lots were legally created at the time of platting. They're existing non-conforming. The consolidation of the two platted lots would require the preparation of a certified survey map that meets our current ordinance requirements, chapter 16. And as I had stated earlier, they need 30,000 square feet of contiguous buildable area in there. Right now, they only have about 1,900. In addition, if the two platted lots are consolidated, the 75-foot building setback line would prohibit any additional structures from being constructed on what is now platted lot 13. So again, that's that dashed purple line. So the purpose of the contiguous buildable area standard is to ensure there's adequate area for building use and sufficient area suitable for the entire POUT system. I need to go back up to my other sketch. So a home is currently being constructed on lot 14. It's shown graphically on here roughly where it is. There's a mound system that's been installed right behind the house. And then according to the applicant, a well is scheduled to be drilled just southeasterly of the house. If the septic system would fail, its replacement could be constructed in the same location. So if the variance for the 30,000 square foot contiguous buildable area requirement is approved, and lot 14 is combined with lot 13, the contiguous buildable area standard from a practical standpoint serves no purpose. Again, the house is already there, the well is planned, and the septic is already in. If the variance is not approved, lot 13, the southerly one, could potentially be developed for residential purposes. It wouldn't be affected by our current ordinance. So combining these two platted lots, 13 and 14, into one new lot eliminates the possibility of further developing lot 13 for residential purposes, and in effect would reduce the overall residential density for the subdivision. So we need to look at undue hardship. Combining the two existing lots falls way short of our 30,000 square foot requirement. The lots were created before the adoption date of chapter 16, and again are considered existing non-conforming lots. I guess it's really important to remember that each one of these lots can be built upon without regard to the CBA requirement or the 75-foot building setback line. And now requiring the consolidated lot to meet the newly adopted standards, in my mind, imposes an undue hardship on the applicant. We also need to look at the intent and purpose of chapter 16. I'm not going to go through all the purpose statements. They were in your packet. I will focus on statement number 7. It talks about preventing the destruction or impairment of environmentally sensitive areas. So according to the site plan provided by the applicant, which is this, the house is already there. It's in what we consider an environmentally sensitive area, according to our new ordinance. Additionally, the shed being proposed on lot 13 would also fall in an environmentally sensitive area. Combining the two platted lots arguably reduces the impact to the environmentally sensitive areas on the property due to the fact that one less home and one less septic system and well are going to be impacting those areas. So I think that's an important point to the discussion and presentation this morning. The granting of a variance would not be contrary to Wisconsin statutes or Wisconsin administrative code. So based on everything above, the ENS department recommends approval of the request, consolidating the two existing platted lots to allow for the existing residents and associated improvements is consistent with the purpose and intent of chapter 16. Just want to make sure we're covering everything else in the packet. There was a written brief here provided by the applicant. We went through that sketch. Here's a copy of Timber Valley. And then, of course, I received an application and the required fee. So that concludes my staff report. Again, Tim and Andrea are here representing Timber Ridge. And if you have any questions of them, I'm sure they'd be glad to answer them. I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carlson. Any questions from the committee? Does the applicant have any comments on it? Okay. All right. Anyone care to make a motion on this or?
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor Morehouse.
I'll second.
Premier, a second. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks. So let's see. We'll go back up to staff reports. Register of Deeds. Anything you want to point out, Heather?
Good morning. I don't really have anything to add. I guess you could see that our recordings are down for January. So it's been pretty quiet as far as real estate. But busy otherwise with a lot of questions and different research and such that we've been doing for people.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I noticed that you had something in there, attending a webinar regarding ransomware. You read about that all the time. Can you tell us a little bit about where we stand or is whatever?
Yeah, so that was through our software company, that our software vendor. And they just, as they see different scenarios come to light, that was a county that was hit with ransomware. Our data is actually stored offsite. We pay for a hosting solution through our software vendor. So it's stored offsite with a secondary location. So I feel and everything's backed up as far as our data, the images, our financial records are all backed up through this hosted solution. It's called Bastion that we do pay for that, but yeah, I feel pretty confident. So that's what that was. It was kind of our software vendor reiterating what their product is and what we have and what they offer.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thanks very much for that.
Oh, and this
Okay.
is just a compliment, Heather, for sitting through our legislative meeting last Monday.
Yeah.
Thanks for being there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Survey division, Mr. Carlson.
Good morning. I don't really have much to add other than just wanted to thank the committee for allowing us to go to our continuing education conference down in Dells. You think, you've been doing this job for so many years that you know it all, but you realize you don't. I mean, there was a lot of good information there that we took away again, and it's always a good time to go down and talk with our peers in other counties, find out how they're doing things, and just keep current on survey related matters. So thanks again. I'll be coming to you at budget time, asking for money again next year to go to the same conference. And I think it's certainly money well spent.
Thank you, Tom. I was struck by, I think there were 57 different workshops. I've never been to a conference with that many workshops.
And it's a good conference because you can only be in one place at
Yeah, I
once.
know.
And there's so many times that you want to go to three different things, and it's really a struggle trying to pick which one. And
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was very good.
Okay. Chase. Land and Water Conservation.
I don't have much to add other than call out a new grant in there that's in the report for the Red Cedar Conservation Farmers. Some of those members applied for one of the nitrogen optimization pilot program grants, which is something that generated out of the Water Quality Task Force recommendations to do some nitrogen pilot programming. So this is a new grant rolled out statewide. I think it's about $1.6 million are available. And max individual grants for per producer is 50,000. This particular grant involves 4 of our producers in Dunn County for a total of about $149,000 is what's being applied for. So that'll come back to them in the form of this grant to support nitrogen use efficiency trials and research per se on the farm as it pertains to cover crop termination timelines. So earlier or later, how does that affect the nitrogen availability and what's potentially leaching? So.
Is that a multi-year project?
Yes, it's about 2 years primarily. Yeah.
Any questions? Thanks, Chase.
Thank you.
Ann.
I don't really have anything to add. I know this one is not that much information, but I had a lot for this meeting today, so
Yeah,
I apologize for
You
that.
did. Okay. Any questions? Otherwise, think that concludes the staff reports. Item C would be a review of the proposed ordinance amendments to address residential uses in commercial zoning districts. And again, you provided us with a document on this. Why don't you go through it for us?
So I just wanted to say that I want to be clear that these were not proposed by staff. This is simply a report so that the committee is informed and can have a constructive discussion regarding the topic. I wanted to put in some things that I felt like were being told to me that you were looking for so that you could discuss this. Tom, if you could just scroll down a little bit further to the proposed changes. So, you went a little too far. Thank you, right there. So if you look at this, number 5, home occupations, change the floor area. I just wanted to say that Chairman Potter brought up a really good point here. This is just not enough time for staff to look at this and come back with information. I think, it was really important for us to look at home occupations. Our current ordinance as it's written is lacking. It's outdated. There are some things listed on there that don't make a whole lot of sense. I think everybody believes we should have home occupations in Dunn County. I think today might be a good time to talk about that a little bit, especially with those comments, but I really would ask that we have this separate from what we're working on with the proposed text amendments for residential uses and commercial so that we can really give this a little bit better attention. It's not as simple as just changing some words. And with that, I think maybe you'd like to have your discussion and I can be here if you want to ask me anything.
So these are the 8 points that you're suggesting we look at for revision.
Based on the discussions that have previously happened, I felt like it was told to me that you wanted non-owner occupied single family and multifamily dwellings removed from commercial districts as principal uses. So that is one of the things that's written there. That's the first one. Second one would be similar. The third one is removing the words adjacent to the principal use, mostly because this is kind of a muddy topic. I think if we'd want to specify that it needs to be attached or on the same property or separate, we can do that, but adjacent is not clear. The Shoreland one, I wanted to remove, that's number 4 here. For owner occupancy, rent or lease. I put that in there because we had talked about how difficult it would be and we might be running into some legal issues saying what people can do as far as occupancy of their home, whether it's rented out or they live there. That's why that's there. Again, home occupations, essentially 50% of the total floor area. That's a common limitation for home occupation, mostly because it keeps the home occupation as an accessory use because it's not using the entire property for the home occupation. Whether that's what we want or not, I think that's another day. Number 6, just a spelling mistake, grammar. 7, another spelling mistake. And 8, the numbering and lettering scheme doesn't make sense and would need to be changed, but I can work with Corporation Counsel on that. There are more changes that should be done. Some of the uses listed there are, like I said, outdated. I just think this needs to be a separate discussion in a separate order. It's a lot to put on. I think we just need to stick with the topic of the residential dwellings and commercial as was proposed by the committee.
Any questions or further discussion by the committee? Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm bouncing back and forth here between the zoning ordinance and what we've got here. So I see 13.2.9.01, number 1. In the current zoning ordinance, that's in the original description, right at the beginning. And I'm thinking you removed everything. I see 13.2.9.03. That's the next spot where non-owner occupied dwelling shows up. But there's a 13.2.9.04 where it says multifamily dwelling as a permitted accessory use. Let's see, that would be A. 13.2.9.04A. Shouldn't that also be eliminated if we're going to eliminate multifamily dwelling?
So from our last discussion, I guess it wasn't made clear to me that you wanted to remove multifamily dwellings completely.
Everything
Is that what
was-
you're asking?
Everything that was changed in 2017 that allows for a multifamily dwelling to be in general commercial. The whole point is not to have as a permitted use multifamily dwellings in general commercial.
Okay, so this discussion, I'm asking that the committee discuss whether they want me to do this or not. This takes a lot of time. And I will be going to Corporation Counsel at some point. I need it to be clear and I'd like to have some discussion about whether the committee agrees that this is what you want to do. So far, I hadn't been told that accessory use of, I mean, I guess I'm a little confused. Could you please talk about it? Right now, I'm just getting direction from Mike.
I know that you think I'm sick, but Mike, please explain to me one more time as we're considering all kinds of housing issues, why the town of Menominee and perhaps other towns want us to do this. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I don't know if that's helping Ann, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, first off, it's either all or none, because if you allow multifamily dwelling as a permitted accessory use, you might as well allow it for all of it. But
Say that again, Mike.
well, the way it's proposed, well, let me answer.
Sure.
I could do another 15 minutes,
I know.
Diane. What, now you're concerned about housing.
Yes,
So are you suggesting it would be okay to take general ag and allow multifamily housing in all general ag? From our point of view, having the county do that?
probably not.
Well, we just did that by accident without even knowing it in general commercial. And you heard the town of Menominee chairman and I think the town of Red Cedar chairman, who have the two most general commercials in all of them, say that that's not what we planned on. Certain areas are great for housing, Red Cedar. They don't have R1. They decided that they're gonna do R2. So if it's residential, they'll do R2. The town of Menominee zoned the way they did based on 2015. And I don't think it's right for the town or for the county to go and say, well, you guys zoned the way you did, and we think that you should have multifamily housing in there. And the town says, well, we didn't zone for that. That's not in our plan. That's kind of the basic right thing. The other thing is leaving multifamily housing in is not going to help housing. Look what happened out here with Bob Rosendahl. Those houses are on R2. They're single family homes that are high end. They're not going to put a dent in anything. If someone wants to come in and put R3 in the town of Menominee, they come to the town and say, we'd like to do this. And then the town has some say. Say, yeah, this is a good spot for it. Okay, we recognize it and it fits and so forth. This does not keep anyone from going R3. The only difference is it doesn't give the county the say and say, you guys are now R3. We don't care. And that's what's happened here. You've made, I was on the board. We have made all general commercial into R3, and that is not right. We wouldn't do it in general ag. We wouldn't do it in R1. We wouldn't do it in like up in the Grant. We're going to take all those intensive ags and say, oh, now you can do multifamily. So from the basic standpoint of local control, from the standpoint of they can still change to R3, but it would allow the towns to see where it's appropriate or not. Because an 8-plex is not appropriate everywhere we have general commercials. And right now, this allows that. That's just some of it. It's just so wrong. The other is we didn't even know we put it in.
I know.
And we don't know why we put it in. But so, Anne, you need to hear from the other ones in a minute here, but I've been repeatedly saying, go back to 2015 for the entire language. And I can understand where you haven't heard from them, so you don't know that, but. So those are some of the reasons, Diane.
Thank you.
Sure.
Because I think when we've done our comprehensive planning, you're supposed to have adequate area for like low housing, like low cost housing. Does the town of Menominee maybe need more area zoned R3 right off the bat instead of have to come and talk to the town board? You know, when you're doing your plan, you're supposed to have adequate for all types of housing.
Good point.
Actually, not just all types of housing. You're supposed to have places for general commercial and then everything else. The town of Menominee based its zoning on the land use plan and the survey. As you all probably know, it's a big deal to do a land use plan. You have a survey. And it was based on that, along with, I guess I would call it conservation in a way. Where would things be appropriate? We have more R3 than the town of Red Cedar. Maybe more than the town of Colfax. We don't have much. We have more R2, but there hasn't been a call for R3. Anyway, but they could still do it. And if you just go and make something R3, I guess you could. But right now, we've made over 120 parcels R3. And I don't know how many in the town of Red Cedar. And maybe half a dozen or more in the town of Sherman.
Have been made R2? Or
No, there are three now.
R3, okay.
Well, no, I'm saying they're not. They're general commercial, but with
Oh, I
this
see what you're
language,
saying.
they
I
are
see what you're
R3.
saying. Basically, they are R3.
Yeah.
By,
And
by
it's
right, no.
by right, yeah, so. It's so easy to change it to R3. We didn't even know we were doing it, and it's so hard to change it back. It's just kind of a no-brainer to me. We had no reason to change it. It will not help housing.
So the argument is if you have R3 as a zoning class category, then you have to provide adequate, and Chase brought this up, then as far as commercial, if you have commercial, then you have to provide adequate designation for commercial. Are you saying the same thing in like R2 or R3?
There's no rule that says one township has to offer all of them. It depends on the township. The town of Menominee decided we are next to the city. We have all these highways. We will bite the bullet and go general commercial. Now, this could turn out to look and could cause problems in the future, depending on how it works out. The town of Red Cedar is close to the city. They're going R2. Grant is all intensive ag and the other one. So each one is a little different in what they can offer. The state doesn't require that each township offers every district. Is that what you asked, Tom?
Right, yeah. Mhm. How many properties are designated R2 or R3 in your township?
No, I didn't even try to count them.
Really?
No.
Okay.
It's pretty easy to count the general commercial. They're all on the highways. And I don't know if that's actually an issue. Is it up to us to decide if the town of Menominee has enough R1, R2, R3? It is not. It's up to the township, and we've taken that away in this one case.
Yeah. I mean, my inclination is that the argument that Mike is making makes sense, that we putting the multifamily dwellings in by right does muddy the waters with regard to what we intended for commercial areas. So I tend to be supportive of considering taking that out of there. Understanding what Diane says, and the fact that we need to provide more areas for residential development, but to have that happen in a way that is supported by the community probably requires that we not slip it into what is a little bit non sort of conforming type use, or could be by right.
What I'm wondering about is, so if we make this change, does that mean that we are telling the townships you cannot have mixed use zoning?
No, not at all. In fact, it gives the townships more flexibility with that. For example, the development that brought this to light is R2 and general commercial on the property that he bought. So I don't know what you mean by mixed use, but they're side by side. He kept one general commercial and changed it into R2. Yeah, could you explain more if I didn't answer that?
So if a township wants, a mixed use community, the option is, like, let's have a little stripe of R3, let's have a little stripe of commercial, we'll put them adjacent to one another, but we can't, there's no option to have it with a commercial plus, residential in the same district, like on the same street or
Do you,
whatever.
do you mean on the same lot?
And do I don't know.
Could be.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you can't have a mixed zoning on the same lot.
Okay.
That we've had several of those, that Thomas mentioned, right? We can't have two different zones on one parcel. But anything can occur if someone comes to the township and says, here's what I'd like to do. And the township says, well, look, no, this is a wetland. You can't do that here, but if you did this and this. Or township says, well, here's a better spot, or yeah, that's great. Anybody can come in and change the zonings they can ask to change to anything. This does not prevent that. This merely says that townships are not forced to have R3 in general commercial as a by right.
So you're saying that a township could say, yes, we would like to have this mixed use community with, the same things on the same lot. They could do that by,
Same things on same lot, no, or the same things on same lot. Yeah, I understand. Any kind of mixture can happen. The zones are all there. All they have to do is be approved by the town and the county.
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
So the owner of a general commercially zoned property could come to the town board or the plan commission and say, I would like to construct a duplex. They can do that. Yeah, or no?
They can do that right now. They don't have to ask. They can do that right now, but you mean if we change it back?
I'm asking if we make the change.
Yeah, they come and say, here's this junk commercial. We'd like to put a duplex next to it. I'd like to change it to R2. And that's just what Bob Rosendahl did. He
Yeah.
changed it to R2. So they can ask for anything. It gives the townships local control. And it seems like they have more knowledge of what should be done in the towns than we do, since we made the change without even knowing it. I keep thinking, well, why did we do that?
Must have been your fault.
It was. I'll take it. Monica, you still look like you have questions. Ann's looking for some direction.
Could I comment, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Monica was talking about mixed use zoning. And right now, the way this is written, this is technically mixed use zoning. It allows for a complementary mix of residential and commercial uses in a single district. By removing these things, we're reducing that. I mean, it's not so much of a mixed use anymore. It's just straight. I mean, that's pretty common in other districts. I mean, we allow some crossing of some uses. I mean, apartment buildings are essentially a residential use and a commercial use together. They make sense if you have mixed use zoning. But I guess what I'm hearing here is that you want to remove multifamily dwelling. Do you want to leave single family dwellings or duplexes? I mean, I don't.
It's
Understood.
really simple, and you don't have to go through all the work. Go back to 2015. That's when we required the townships to add the R3. And when I say R3, and I recognize that maybe this isn't something that you think is a good idea or you approve of, but for the reasons that I've been stating all along, I think it's the right move to go back. And mixed use is maybe it's a specific term, but think about the towns that we have, town of Colfax, or Gary is, or what's going to happen in them and what's good for them. Is it good to put an 8-plex out someplace, a 6-plex, a 4-plex, a duplex? Who's going to decide that? Us or the town? And mixed use, Yeah, we have talked about like strip malls or something else like that. That's a possibility, not likely, but it's a possibility on the highways. And you guys talk. I've made my point multiple times, and I'd like to hear what you want to say, because nobody has said too much other than Diane.
I mean, I feel like either direction we go on this with the possibilities we've been talking about, we're telling townships what they can and cannot do, right? Either we're telling them, you know, I think that a township should have the ability to do mixed use, like real mixed use, genuine mixed use, if they want it. And I don't want to take that away, but I also don't want to tell town of Menominee, you know, you need to essentially do multifamily housing in these places that you didn't intend it. I don't like either option.
Well, how would mixed use happen if we change this back to the original? Typically a developer would come to a town board and say, you know, I want to build let's say a kind of a mini commercial center here, and I want to have housing around it. And that's going to require that we carve out a residential piece for the its own commercial now. I'd like to add some, I think it makes sense to add, since we're doing all this infrastructure in there, I think it makes sense to add some multifamily housing in there that would be consistent with the development. And the town would have the option, they would propose to the town that I would like to create a lot here and have that lot be zoned residential to R2, so that it's available for some kind of multifamily use. And here's what I'm proposing. It seems like that would be to me, like that would be the right planning process for the town to go through, rather than somebody coming in and saying, you know, rather than having the developer make that decision entirely on their own.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I keep saying, I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about this. In the example that you just provided, isn't it possible that the prospective developers would look at this and say, nah, I'm not even going to bother to ask for a rezone, because you know, and we shouldn't be picking on Bob Rosendahl, but you know, when developers are telling us that they choose not to move forward with residential development because we impose restrictions that make them believe that we don't want them to build residential housing. So you know, I have that concern. I mean, are we artificially, I mean, I understand the issue of local control, but I also want to make sure, I mean, at least I, in all the years that I've been on the board, haven't been thinking about the bigger issue. You know, we take these kind of one at a time. Now I think we should be looking at a sort of a longer range set of objectives around what would we like to happen in Dunn County with respect to development, with respect to housing, and they're so linked. I mean, it's just so, I don't want us to be creating disincentives. And I fear that we might be.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Rosendahl did name a few things that were quite a barrier, and none of them were zoning. They were the details in the zoning.
Right.
I don't, what you said is true. We need to be looking at it with that, but this doesn't affect that. It's either it's allowed or it's not. Every single zoning thing has a whole bunch of stuff allowed in it. We stuck one in by accident that should be taken out. And I'm thinking we should actually talk to Bob. He had some very good suggestions. I won't call them complaints about what we could do to help. But it's a good point, but I don't think it bears on this.
I kind of agree with Tom that if it would go back to the old way and a guy had a large enough lot, there's no reason why he couldn't go to the town board and ask for rezone. Say, I want to go from commercial to like R2 or whatever. You know, and then maybe sometimes that commercial lot might have city water and sewer. And that would make more sense for those multifamily homes to go, you know, be built in those areas. It would help both the commercial and the residential part of it. You know, so yeah, I'm kind of, you know, not really one way or the other. I'd rather talk about, or Dunn talk about that home occupation. That's what I want to talk about, but
Yeah.
you know, once we're done there, we'll go back there.
Well, one last, and I've been pushing this because I think it's timely. It's something that needs to be taken care of before more problems occur. Go back and then if we're back to the 2015 language and we see that, boy, we messed that up, you can always change it back, but then we'd have a reason. We have no reason now to have it. I'm done.
This might, is there a reason that we have to have just one type of zoning here, or can we have like this, we have two different options, right? The one that is basically allowing the mixed use and then the other one that is, that strikes the non-owner occupied, right? Can we do both, or is that just too much? Am I making any sense? Kinda. Right, so right now I'm looking at the two options and I'm saying I don't like either option. Can we do both in different types of zoning?
Well, that would be, yeah, so that would be the option of putting it in as a special exception or something, I suppose, right? Where you could come and request that commercial that how would that work procedurally? How would that work to have multifamily housing as a special exception in commercial?
Essentially, they would have to go through the town that they're located in first, get their recommendation. That would go to the Board of Adjustment. They'd be able to apply conditions. Another option would be to actually put standards into the ordinance so that there are consistent standards applied to everyone who would say multifamily dwelling under a special exception use. Just to make that a little more consistent, those standards do help. I did try to include a lot of these things in this chart. I don't know if you guys took a look at that. It's not the easiest to read, but I did the best I could. The orange is 2015, purple is 2017. Permitted principal uses are P, A is accessory uses. You know, as you can see, single family dwellings in, you know, 2017, you can, you know, they're an accessory use in limited commercial and general commercial. I think that's fine. I feel like we're having these general commercial properties that are growing. People want to change sometimes. Sometimes you get a home occupation that gets really big and you need to zone general commercial so you can keep your house. If we take that out, people can't do that anymore. And I want to make sure that I get some good direction on, are we just removing multifamily? What I think going back to exactly as 2015 was written is a little bit sweeping. We have an opportunity here to actually look at this and make an informed decision and make sure we're listening to the towns and what they want, because they do have a chance here to come to public hearings and tell us what they want. And that'll be important when we actually have the hearing for this. I don't know. I guess I'm just asking for, if we're gonna go back to exactly, you want me to propose it to be a change to 2015 again, we'll have to go through with that, but I just want to know if that's exactly what everyone wants to do. You just remove everything that was made in 2017 and go back to 2015, or if we actually want to look at this and make sure that's the exact change is. So that's what I'm trying to do here.
When you say, the entire, you mean talk about the entire, what about, what's your, Mike, just to clarify, your request is that we go back to the ordinances with regard to commercial zoning, right? That we simply exclude that. Or are there other things you're asking?
No, I'm asking to go back 2015. I see for multifamily housing is the real concern. I see, this is a great chart. I see that, single family dwelling was added in 2017. And that was something that you said that you thought should be there as a recommendation. I don't see a problem with that. I guess I didn't realize that that was not back in the original one. But it's the multi-family housing that's really the key. When I say single family dwelling, I can't speak for the townships, but that would be much more palatable. You've had 2 town chairmen come in now with the most general commercial and tell you that they didn't want the multifamily dwelling. So that's really the concern.
So you're, just so Ann has
Yeah, yeah.
clear, your request is to remove the multifamily dwelling, and that's pretty much,
That's pretty much it, yeah. And I said, go back to 2015 because that seemed like the easiest way to do it without a lot of work.
As much as I appreciate not a lot of work, I just want to make sure we're not making a hasty decision when we could do it the right way the first time instead of coming back to it again later and doing it in pieces.
and just to, once you clarify what you mean by that. Doing it the right way.
That we're not just doing a broad stroke removal going back to 2015, that we have a chance here to sit and discuss and make sure, okay, this is why we want to remove multifamily. This is why we want to keep single family. I will do that. I can come up with this language. I can get it through Corporation Council. We can have a public hearing where the public can weigh in and the town chairs can come and tell us if they agree with it or not, but
Mr. Chairman.
I'm trying to understand what, that's one
I'm
option.
just asking that we talk about it a little bit more before we make a broad change. And the reason for that being is that we have places out there right now that are going to become non-conforming if we remove this language. We have places where a business has a home located on the property. And I don't agree with making that change. That's
But-
the only one.
But that doesn't deal with multifamily. That deals with,
Now we're discussing that, but if we go back to 2015, we are removing that.
well, let's, if we go back to 2015 with regard to multifamily housing, I think is what the discussion is.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm agreeing with Ann that I think we are sort of bouncing ahead on this, and there are lots of implications that we haven't discussed. And I mean, single family dwelling obviously is one of those. I think we need to look at this more carefully, and I don't know, maybe everybody is unhappy about spending the time on it, but I think we need to. And I think that we need to respect Ann's concerns about the process and discuss them more fully than I think we have. Sorry, Mike.
How long do we need to discuss it? We've been doing this for months. And I recognize. And now, as far as non-conforming, you mean that in the 2 years or the years that have passed since 2017, there are multi-family housing built on general commercial?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay, but have there been multi-family housing built on general commercial?
Not that I've seen.
Okay, so
What I'm trying to say is that if we,
I heard you. Thank you. I do get it, Ann, and I recognize your viewpoint. And yeah, I'm just asking questions now.
Monica.
I tend to agree with Diane and Ann. For me personally today, I don't feel prepared, that I don't have a good enough understanding to make a recommendation to Ann to move forward. I don't want to see her wasting her time. I feel like I need more time to figure this out. And yes, I know we've been talking about this since August, September. I'm slow. I need more time to understand this. So.
Good
And-
discussion.
I think we need a better consensus before we move on too.
Yep,
I hate to say it,
yep.
but
I agree. So the question then is, I think everyone sort of is okay with that. Thank you for you guys for your comments. But to alleviate the frustration level, suggestions for how we go forward with that then? I mean, Andy, you have we just come back and go through what you put together, a lot of material. You want us to reschedule this for an agenda item, and we'll go back and we'll take a look at start taking a look at it piece by piece?
I could certainly do that. I mean,
You've done a lot of work. I don't think you need to do any more work than help us go through it. Kind of.
I guess that was the intention with this report was here's
okay.
the language that I was made me understand. I mean, it's very simple to just look at those and say, well, we don't want multifamily. Let's take that out. Let's leave single family.
Okay.
We can do this another time. That's fine with me. I could
Well,
certainly provide more information.
I'm hearing from the committee that they want to take this, they want to deliberate a little bit on this and get to understand it better and build more consensus about it. So what we'll do is put it on the agenda next time, and we can think about how we want to, what's the most practical way to address the concerns that people have and build our understanding. But you did provide us with a lot of information, which, we all need to go over at least once or twice more before we talk again. Is it okay if we re-agenda this and then, okay, that's what we'll do. Thanks, Ann. Appreciate it. I think we're down to 9. To help me if I've missed anything, are we down to 9B? The budget carry forward request from Land and Water Conservation.
Ready for me. All right, yeah, so before you there are a couple, several budget carry forward requests. I'd be happy to go through them as much detail as you'd like, but a brief summary is in those justifications on the bottom of the sheet, but certainly there's cost share funds that we have through our state grant for both hard practices such as dams, waterways, barnyard type situations, as well as nutrient management planning. Due to weather, contractor availability, we always tend to have some carry forward requests every year. Projects that didn't get completed, and we need to bring those forward into the new year. So that's what the first couple lines are. We have our conservation aid grant, that $2,325, which is a 50-50 match between the county and the state DNR. Those are for typically public access, natural resource type activities. There is a $8,471 carry forward request for the Red Cedar Conservation Farmers. So some unspent funds that just need to be brought forward. Fairly standard for that type of work. Again, another common thing, the 125,000, almost 126,000 is for a snowmobile bridge. That is within the floodplain. So this current year, or excuse me, in 2022, there was a flood study conducted. There was some expense incurred. Based on the results of that, now it's going to move forward to the next steps, which timing requires that we carry this forward into the new year, 23. In upcoming meetings here, I'm going to bring forward to the committee a potential timber sale on the Dunn County Islands. And in doing so, there's the river crossing to get to those islands, and that's what this carry forward request is for the Dunn County Islands / Knights Creek dams. We pull money out of that same account for both of those programs. So we will need to update that crossing in order to facilitate a timber sale there, which will come in the future. And then the 10,406 is for our MDV program, multi-discharge variance program, carrying some funds forward for that, for buffers and other stuff within the Red Cedar watershed. And then the last is, and this may change in the near future, but we had a capital improvement request for replacing one of our fleet vehicles due to vehicle availability and expense. That those funds were not expensed in 22, and we're asking to carry those forward into 23, with the understanding that we're looking at other options rather than outright purchase of a vehicle, looking at leasing through enterprise, similar to the facilities department, so that those funds will be put to use and potentially not spent to the fullest. So be happy to go into any more detail on that if you'd like.
Any questions? Could I have a motion? Do you think Chase would be okay? Should we do these? There are two requests here. Would it be okay to include them both in the same motion, do you think?
I think it might be fine. There is a separate resolution for the actual budget adjustments, so that would probably be.
Oh, I see. Okay, the carry forward request you're talking about now. Yeah. Let's do it separately. So item B, a motion to approve the budget carry forward request.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll move approval of the carry forward request.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Burke seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Budget adjustment request. Is there a motion to approve?
I will move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I would just add, Mr. Chair, for clarification. So, there's the request form that we turned in, and then there is a resolution that is part of that packet too. That will be forwarded to the executive committee and county board to act upon that. And it is a large dollar amount, but we have a couple large big projects, so all grant related.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item 10, consideration of resolution authorizing the application for a targeted runoff management grant.
So if you recall, let's see, what was the exact date? Last year sometime, April, I want to say, county board adopted two resolutions. One was to authorize the participation in TRIM grants, target and runoff management grants, and notice of discharge grants to the Department of Natural Resources. And there was a separate resolution that was for a specific farm resolution for that actual application. Moving forward to this current topic, we already have the general government responsibility resolution completed. So all we need is a specific resolution to apply for another grant for a specific farm. And this would be the Tom Knutson farm. There is an earth and manure storage structure there that is failing. It's in non-compliance with state code and county code. And they're looking at applying for federal and state grants to assist in upgrading that manure storage structure. So this particular resolution is authorizing us to apply for a targeted runoff management grant. And we are still in the process of confirming all the specific eligibility requirements for that grant. It seems like, every site is so unique. We have to work through that, but this grant application is due in April, leaving us one county board meeting in March to get this resolution adopted. So that's why it's before you now. If for some reason eligibility things fall through, then this resolution would not be acted upon. But to set us up to allow us to apply and have a successful application, complete application, we would need to process this. So.
Any questions? All in favor, a motion? Somebody?
I'd like to, you make that motion
Supervisor
because
Grill.
that is, you're very close to a trout stream, so I
Okay.
think it'd be a good idea.
Superior seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Are there any announcements? Next meeting is February 27th, and we are adjourned.